Well, welcome everybody to the Monday Night Buhler and Friends call. I am Robert Laird, and I am your host for this evening. And we're going to have a fun night. It might be a little bit quicker. We'll see. But this really is about building businesses and moving ourselves forward with our Relive businesses. And so I'm excited for what we've got. And before we get into it, if anybody has any week successes, anything they're excited about this week, I'd love to hear from them. I know I mean, the big Mike had a success of having a birthday, so that counts. But anybody got something? Robert. You're welcome. Is there anything you're excited about, Mike?
No, I just other than that. So I'm just trying to get back into the things.
Hey, that counts. New
phone today.
Oh, there you go.
Well, the bad thing about it is my old phone locked up, and I don't know if I can recover any of my contacts in there. So.
Oh, bummer. Well, I hope they figure out a way.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we keep plugging away on things down here, and I love to see. I think I mentioned this the other day, but I love seeing our Relive app light up with people either ordering or signing up or watching. I just saw one. Somebody watched a video a few minutes ago that popped in on us, and so it's really about getting good habits and keeping things moving in the right direction, which is really what I'm going to hit tonight. And I'm just going to move right on into it, I think. And really what I was convicted about this weekend and in this week, as I've been talking with different people, is habits. And as I started researching this today and going into it, and I've always enjoyed the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but I went into a Brian Tracy approach to it today instead. And he did a 30-year study and came up with 7 success habits for what successful people are doing to be successful. And he determined that habits perform 95% of a person's behavior, which kind of makes sense when you start digging down deeper into it. The habits that you form today are going to help you build the life that you live tomorrow, which also makes a lot of sense. And he really just determined that people with good habits and a positive behavior generally lead a successful and prosperous life. Those were just some traits or things that were common among successful people. And so I thought I would go into those and share those 7 healthy habits with you tonight, and we will get right into it. So the first habit that successful people tend to be is they're goal-oriented. This means they're habitually setting goals on a daily basis, and they're not just kind of thinking out in this other world of like, oh, that would be nice, but they're literally sitting down and they're setting their goals, they're writing them down, and they're doing that on a daily basis. Pen and paper, I carry notebooks. I've got 3 of them sitting right here on my desk of things that I am writing down to get done in different areas of my life. And I find that just the act of writing them down helps me finish them, even if I don't go back and look at them again. I'm not a huge go back and cross off the list guy. I do like to write things down though, just so that I can put them in, it tends to get into a different part of my brain and my heart that makes things happen more often, I think. Successful people, along with being goal-oriented, part of that is using the 80-20 rule to do what's important first. So most people spend most of their time doing 80% of stuff that's not important. And successful people instead focus on what's the 20% of stuff that's on my list that is the most important. And that's what they do first. Quite often, that's the most intimidating. That's the hardest. There's the swallow the frog principle that when you've got a bunch of things that you don't want to do, what do you do first? Well, you swallow the frog because that's the most uncomfortable thing. And then everything else after that is easier. And so if you lead with that on your goal-oriented approach on a daily basis, that's going to help you be more successful as well. People that are goal-oriented and leading that successful life tend to know what they want, and they know where they're going. They have a vision for what the end of their day looks like, the end of their week looks like, end of their month looks like, end of their year looks like. But they tend to have this plan of hey, this is where I want to go, and I know what it looks like. They also review their goals and accomplishments daily. And that's important because you want to review not just the goals, but you also want to look at, hey, what did I do today? So that you can reward yourself and you can be like, hey, you know what? I achieved this. Pat myself on the back. That's great. And then you built on a success from day to day of like, oh, I achieved this yesterday and I can achieve this one extra thing tomorrow, and continue to build on successes, because the more success you have, the more you can have. And sometimes that starts with something. In fact, most of the times it starts with a small success and you build it a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Just like when we work out, you don't go straight to lifting really heavy weights when you first start. You start with the light weights and you build up some muscle and you get a little bit heavier and you take it one step at a time. Second thing is they're results driven. This means that they're really about what's happening and what are they getting done to be more successful. Generally, it's in two specific areas, according to Brian Tracy. So first off, they're trying to learn to become better at whatever it is that that person does. So if they are a Relive distributor, they're constantly investing in themselves to learn how to become a better Relive distributor. That's what we're doing tonight. Or if they're trying to be a photographer, they're learning more about photography. If they're trying to be a I don't know, a mechanic, they're learning more about how to be a better mechanic, so that they're always building towards that level of expertise that's going to make them successful. And generally, if you focus on something for 10 years, you are going to be that expert. They're also always working on time management for their results driven thing. They want to know what their best use of time is. So they're cognizant of their time. I've got 24 hours in a day. I'm going to put this much aside so that I can sleep. Maybe it's 8 hours, maybe it's 7, maybe it's 9, whatever it is. And then I'm going to do specific things during specific time so that I get the most out of my time. And I can look at the end of the day, look at all those things I got done and how long it took me. And it's because I controlled my time instead of letting time control me. I think it's always a good, I do this often with employees that sometimes I'm a little bit worried about their time management skills, is I have in every office of somebody that works for me, there's always a whiteboard. And sometimes the whiteboard has things like a calendar of here's what's coming up for this department. Other times I've had people that I'm like, hey, you know what? Just write down what you do today. Am I going to go look at it? Probably not. But the habit of writing down, this is what I did with my time, tends to make you more active and more efficient with your time, because you're like, oh, wow, I didn't do that much today. And then you say, well, I'm going to add one more thing onto my list for tomorrow. And when you start looking at what you do with your time, you can get way more out of it. It's kind of like trimming the sails on a sailboat. And I found it to be incredibly effective. They're action-oriented. They're always moving forward and taking action. And they're not just, it's not just a slow and easy wins the race type thing. There's a determined slow and easy wins the race, if it's going to be that. But there's a sense of urgency of like, I need to keep moving forward. I need to make this happen. I need to change the world. There's kids in Haiti and the Philippines that need me to build my Relive business so that they can get impacted by the Relive Klogers Foundation. And when you have that sense of urgency, then you make things happen. Dr. Schuler used to say, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And we don't wait for other people to make things happen. We decide, hey, you know what? This isn't happening otherwise. I'm going to do that. And that's totally what we do in Relive. If we don't pick up that phone call and put somebody on a 3-way call, odds are they're not going to get that at all. And so that's where it comes down to personal responsibility of, I'm going to make it happen. It's important. And I'm going to be thinking about that. And I'm going to make things happen on a daily basis. I'm going to overcome procrastination. And I'm going to focus on being 100% achieving my most important goals. I'm not going to get 60%. I'm going for that A plus 100%. And, one of the things that I run is a website. We have a goal of getting 4 articles up every day on that website. Does it happen every day? Most of the time, actually. And that's because we have that focus of like, hey, I've got 10 minutes here. I can write an article. And we have that goal of, hey, if this doesn't happen, we don't exist. And the same goes with our Relive business, is if we're not sharing the hope and the stories of Relive, our business doesn't exist. That's what our business is built off, is the action we take to share the hope and the stories of Relive with other people. And that's what makes it such an important thing that we do, and why we should have a sense of urgency. 4, people-oriented. I love this because this is 100% Relive. Brian Tracy discovered that one of the big 7 traits of successful people is they're people-oriented. They love people. Relationships are important. They're much more concerned about the person in front of them than what they can get from that person. They're much more concerned about building that person up as opposed to putting them down. They're really helping to make the world a better place, one person at a time. It's there's Bobby Schuler always talks about making a positive impact on the 15 feet of space around you. And it's really being aware of that and saying, how can I make every person's life around me a little bit better in the actions I take and the way I treat people? Happiness and success with others are often determined on one's ability to get along with others. I remember I had my grandpa, I think, said it years ago, and it was one of those things that stuck with me. And he said, hey, if you want to succeed in life, you just have to be able to play well with others. And it was one of those things that you kind of hear and you're like, yeah, right, that's nice, Grandpa. That was really simple. But as time goes by, I can't tell you how many times those words have come back and you're like, hey, you know what? This person's difficult, but they're not going away from this organization. I need to play well with them, and I can't wait for them to decide to play well with me. I'm going to build them up. I'm going to look for the good in them, because everybody has some level of good in them. You just have to find it. And I'm going to help cultivate that in them and make the world a better place, even if it's just for them. Because then you're building things up, and then you're going to be happier because you're focusing on the good instead of focusing on the bad. And as we know, what Bob Montgomery always says is what you focus on grows. So do you want to focus on what's wrong with everybody, or do you want to focus on the good things that come out of everybody? Because everybody has a smile. You just have to find it. And if you can start building those other people up and finding those things, then those things can blossom. And really, that's where you see so many incredible stories in Relive happening of people that didn't have hope, or people that were in pain and angry, or people that just were grumpy all the time because they couldn't sleep. And then somebody invests in them and really puts their best interests at heart. And suddenly you see these life-changing results, and you see these people that just blossom out of their shell. And that's really, I think, one of the most exciting things about Relive, beyond building businesses and beyond helping people with different health results. The other nice thing is when your mouse works. There we go. 5, they're health conscious. Perfect with Relive also. They're watching their diet. They're exercising portion control. They're taking care of one's body. They're exercising. They're having healthy habits. Healthy health habits lead to a healthy lifestyle on a much grander scope. Isn't that what Fit 3 is all about? I mean, really, it's what Relive is all about. But as I was reading his paper on this, I was like, this is totally what we do in Fit 3. And then we get to share it with other people. But we have to be intentional about it. It's really easy when things get busy or whatever it is to be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Or, oh, I'll just have, I don't know what the sweets of choice are, another candy bar or something. And so we really have to be intentional about being health conscious, because people are watching and they're going to do what we do, or maybe they'll get hope from what we do, which is almost just as important. And then we can change the world one person at a time as well. 6, they're honest. They're honest with others, and they're honest with themselves. And I think at some level, it's easier to be honest with others than it is to be with oneself. And when you're looking at this, be thinking of all of the other ones before it. They're setting goals. They're being health conscious. They're really looking into the relationships with others and building people up. And those kinds of things are fantastic, and they're positive, and they're great. And a lot of them are, setting goals and writing those stuff down are partially internal, but they're also partially an external thing that's helping keep yourself accountable. But I think it's almost always easier to be honest with the guy that you're talking to and you're investing in than it is to be maybe looking at your list at the end of the day and being honest of like, hey, you know what? I didn't make it to where I wanted it to go today. I'm not going to give myself an A+ today. I'm going to give myself a C. but tomorrow I'm going to make an A. And sometimes that's, that goes with Fit 3, that goes with our Relive business, that goes with so many different things we do in life, that we have to look inside ourselves and be like, hey, am I really doing what it is that I set out to do? I always think of the Lord of the Rings and Frodo going to Mordor, and how he had this goal of destroying this ring, and the entire time he's going on this trek, or this adventure, the further he gets, the further the ring, or the harder the ring pushes back inside. And he really had to be honest with where he was and how he was struggling. In case of the book, it's with Sam, so that he could be supported by other people. But that's part of that that vulnerability that leads to strength, that also ties into the relationship thing that we just talked about a minute ago. And it all comes through being honest with yourself and honest with others. And that's not an easy skill for a lot of people to have. I mean, some of us are more on the introverted end of things, and some are more on the extroverted end. And I think in general, it's a lot easier for extroverts to be like, oh yeah, this. And introverts, you know what? We want to process it first. So maybe it's easier for us to be honest with ourselves and harder to be honest with others, and out and transparent, I guess, about what we're struggling with and what we need help with. But it's something to be aware of. And when you're aware of it, then you can start building on what is the solution for what I want to be, and setting those paths of like, this is where I want to go, as opposed to where I'm sitting right now. You want to be setting values that are true to yourself, and then live by them. Do you have a set of values like this is what's important to me, this is what's not as important to me? And then once you've got those in place, and you know yourself, and you start thinking through like, oh yeah, this is fine, I don't mind this, but you know what, I'm not going to do that. Then you can start really setting a baseline for where it is you're going to go. And with that, you're developing the vision of where, who is Robert Laird going to be? Who is Mike going to be? Who's Brenda going to be? Who is any of us going to be? Of, I have this vision of who I'm going to be. This is where I'm going to go. And it's based off of principles and ideals that I'm not going to compromise on. Like, I will not deviate from these specific principles and ideals, because they're the core of who I am. And if I do deviate from them, when I'm honest with myself at night, I'm not going to like what I'm saying to myself, or thinking about it, or those kinds of things, if that makes sense. And it really comes down to doing some deep thinking and introspective looking into, who am I, where am I going, and why am I going there? And we talk about our why and Relive a lot. And this is where it's really important. We need to know why we're doing what we're doing. Why are we building a Relive business? Is it for our family? Is it for the Relive Clover's kids? Is it because, I don't know, maybe it's just because of a necessity of the job I have is not paying what I need to do to live the life that I need to live. And so this is my way to up the pay grade a little bit. But we need to really be honest with ourselves, and we're thinking of the whys, and dig down deep. And then when we've done that, then we can really thrive and blossom and bloom as well. Seventh thing, self-discipline. This is hard. Like, I think this is one of the hardest things for most people to do, is to be the master of one's self and control their own actions. It's almost always easier to have somebody say, hey, do this by this time. It's a lot harder to wake up in the morning and say, hey, I need to do this by this time. So my work day for Hour of Power usually starts at 8:30 a.m. I know in my head, I have until 8:30 a.m. to get the first article of the day up on DAPS. Usually it's actually the second, because I also, probably in about an hour, I'm going to be like, what can I pre-schedule for midnight tonight, so that DAPS has an article going up at midnight, and then I'll get another one up at 7:30 or 8, or sometime in that hour and a half range. And then I'm going to work on Hour of Power, and then at about 4 o'clock or whatever, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to be like, all right, now who can I connect with Relive? Who can I start thinking of that needs to who can I get on a call, I guess I could say, or get onto the Thursday night short and sweet call or whatever. But I have to have that plan in mind, and then I have to basically keep myself disciplined to that plan and keep myself accountable to that plan so I can get everything I want done. Because I look at my day in specific segments of time management of like, this is when I do this. This is when I'm going to do that. I have an hour break here. I can do this then. 4 o'clock came, time to get Relive, time to start making dinner at 5:30. Let's get on whatever call I can get on. Let's get somebody else on that call. Oh, that was a great call. Let's share that call with somebody else. All right, it's 6:30. Dinner needs to be done because by 7, I need to start focusing on the training call I'm hosting at 8 o'clock. And then at 8:30, I'm going to film a puppet. But it's really deciding I'm going to do this on any specific day, and I'm going to control, I'm going to be the captain of my own ship for that day. And I'm going to take responsibility for the successes and the failures of any given day. And that's really something that I can't say, hey, Dad, do this for me, or whoever. It's something that I just have to decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to be self-disciplined. I'm going to go for my walk at 12 o'clock till 12:30 while I listen to a podcast. I'm going to go for another walk at 9:30. And I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do to get where it is that I want to go. Because at the end of the day, I can't let anybody else do that for me. I have to do it. If you don't eat, you're going to starve. And so I have to make sure that we eat. But that's self-discipline. It's rather self-explanatory, but it's a really hard thing to do, especially if you don't have the why and you don't have that vulnerability with yourself and other people that I mentioned on the last slide. So then the next thing that really you want to think about is you've got those 7 habits and you want to evaluate, which habits am I good at? What habits am I bad at? How much am I willing to invest in those habits today to determine the future of tomorrow? What do they say? It takes 3 weeks. Is it 21 days, I think, to create a good habit? What's a habit that I could add into my daily routine for maybe commit to it for 3 weeks and then evaluate, how did that work out? What can I do to invest in my future with my actions today that are going to help me create a habit of success? Because that's really what it comes down to, is when you start getting into the habit of success, more success is going to find you. And it's not because of luck, as much as some people may think so. It's really because you've created, if we're going to go into that garden analogy we used a couple of weeks ago on Saturday training, we've created an environment where success can grow. We've created an environment where success is the normal and not the surprise. And when that happens, then the habits that you're choosing to make today aren't just going to determine your success tomorrow. You get to determine the level of success you want to have tomorrow. And the great thing is we have this wonderful success system in Relive where you can choose what level of success you want to hit. Maybe it's key director, maybe it's senior director, maybe you want to hit master director, ambassador, presidential. There's so many different options based off of what your definition of success is. And at the end of the day, with a system like this, you've heard it a million times before probably, is we can either choose to succeed at whatever level it is that we want to and we want to invest in, or we can choose to quit. And I love that about Relive, is there's really no way to fail other than decide not to do it. And so then we really get to start dreaming, and we get to vision cast and start thinking of where it is that we want to go and what are we willing to do to get there. And if we institute those 7 habits and really are proactive about doing those, the sky is the limit. And with that, that is what I've got for tonight. So I'm going to stop the recording